Hey everyone, it is Eric, it is Jay. We are back from Oklahoma. Fresh from Lemon's Halitosis 2024 at Hallett Motor Racing Circuit. Now, legend has it there's still some outlaw gold buried near the track in Jennings, Oklahoma. And although no one happened to find the long-lost booty, we still had plenty of treasures on the racetrack. And by treasures, we mean hoopties.
Weather in Oklahoma was all over the place. I mean, it was just like the racing, good, bad, and often ugly. We had a lot of rookies. We had a glacially slow Yugo, as if there's any other kind. We had a bona fide Wild West showdown with drunk sheriffs and bad poker. And we had a bounty on every staffer on the event. And yes, I did say Yugo.
We'll start with the judges and penalties at this race. We had Judge Tom and Judge Sajeev, who mostly sat around all weekend thanks to zero contact between any of the teams and relatively clean racing throughout the entire weekend. They were also trying to avoid the bounties placed on them by the Loose Nuts team, who hung up wanted posters all around the track. Now that said, when teams messed up, the judgment was harsh. Judge Tom and Sajeev meted out punishment by, for example, making teams pronounce very difficult to pronounce towns in Oklahoma.
Pahuska. Close. Pahuska. Good.
Composing recognizable songs with whatever musical instrument this is. Fishing for M&Ms with chopsticks, punishing bad themes outright, and in honor of Cinco de Mayo, making bad piñatas.
Now, in addition to Yugo, we also had that other great racing dynasty, Mercury. We were hashtag blessed to have three perfect examples of great Mercuries. First one, Team Skid Steer brought an 81 Cougar. Judge Sajeev was totally drooling over this car because they also brought original brochures. And who keeps Mercury brochures from 40 years ago? Well, I mean, besides Sajeev.
Speaking of blessed by Mercuries, we also had Nothing's Hotter Than a Cougar in the new Cougar, by which we mean a 1996.
And representing 66.6% of the field, Skid Steer also brought a Bobcat. The Bobcat was the premium version of the Pinto. You could imagine how premium that really was. This kart was good enough to give him the first victory in the coveted Pinto versus Bobcat trophy, which debuted at Hallett. I think chances are pretty good it debuted and ended at Hallett.
And we had other cars that weren't Mercuries. Somehow, I don't know why you would race anything else, but these teams did. We'll start with Stolen Donkey Racing and a Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's a rookie team who bought the very first $500 vehicle they came across, which happened to be a Grand Cherokee. And we've had 3 Grand Cherokees in Lemons, and I think they all have the exact same story. It's just the first $500 anything they could find. They put a cage in it. Now this one has the unkillable Jeep 4-liter, which it turns out
can be killed.
Excellent vehicle choice, even if it was the default, and it's a fine machine with a great paint scheme.
I think pretty sweet was Team Allsuck and their Celica. This car, it's on its 3rd or its 4th race. It's finally starting not to entirely suck. It's got a 20R and dumpster-dived EFI.
Oklahoma Staples Barrel Racers were there with their BMW 3 Series with a GM 4.3-liter V6 and an automatic transmission. It still has the excellent handling dynamics we saw last year, even if we couldn't see it on the track because it only ran 10 laps this year. Still, terrible motor in an E21, great way to get into Class C with the BMW.
And I just gotta mention the Mofoco Dodge Magnum. This, if you don't remember, it is a mid-front mounted slant 6 swap in a Magnum. Now, they were on the cusp of walking away with Class C, and then the car developed electrical problems, which is shocking because it only has like 3 wires. They struggled with it. They still had a big lead. Then they spun in the rain, and they really biffed it. Then the electricals packed in for good. They got passed in the last hour. So sad.
This team was formerly known as the Slowpoke Safety Squad, and they learned how to do a head gasket last year at Hallett. This year they rethemed as an E3 AWACS airplane, but they were the track-borne warning and control system. TWACS, they made a sweet radar dome for the roof. Very well done.
I like the Kofefi Honda Fit. Simply a Honda Fit with a little coffee thing on the roof. I love roof-mounted stuff. Do more roof-mounted stuff.
And here are your class winners. We should mention the Class C winner just a little bit. It was Battle-Scarred Motorsports Ford Pinto. Yes, another Pinto. Maybe the yin to the Bobcat's yang. Now, it was having kind of a homecoming of sorts. See, this wagon of excellence was Judge Tom's first high school car. Don't ask what happened in the back seat. And it was also once his Lemons race car too. He found a new home for it with the Battle-Scarred guys, and it was kind of well driven all weekend despite, visiting Tom in the penalty box for old time's sake.
Let's move on to the actual trophies now, starting with Heroic Fix. This was also Battle-Scarred, and this was Pinto adjacent. They brought a Mustang with a 2.3-liter Pinto motor turbocharged. Basically, this is a Mustang SVO. I mean, let's be clear. So, as Mustang SVOs also did, it completely blew up, and they pulled the motor in that thing and said, you know what? We're just going to go find another engine. They found a Pinto somewhere out in the world that had been turbocharged. Went over, got that motor, said, we've learned our lesson. We're taking the turbo off of this thing, put it into the Mustang, ran like stink. Now, I gotta admit, there were only like 2 hours left in the race, but these guys, they had the right attitude. They said some juju and a blessing, and the car held together for the last 2 hours while everybody else blew up. They were able to outlast for that trophy.
Judge's choice went to We're Just Here for the SR and their Chevy Blazer. Now, this is the Pullman family from Nebraska, and they're pretty much on top of the theming game every single time the Blazer shows up. It's been John Denver's charter plane, it's been a real covered wagon, it has been the grape picker, monster truck, I guess, and the Road American Gladiators car. I don't think they've ever left a race without a trophy, and yet again, they went home with hardware thanks to judges Tom and Steve. This time it was a good burger theme, and they slung hundreds of burgers during the race at the potluck, and their weekend, so-so, but I mean, just look at this thing. Look at it.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
Organizer's choice went to the Yugo of the Socialist Federal Racers of Yugoslavia. Now, you might look at a road race and say, Yugo, I don't really know if that's the right choice, and particularly not bringing one to the Socialist Federal Republic of Oklahoma, where they don't go in for that kind of a joke. But hey, let's not nitpick a fundamentally great idea. This was not the first Yugo to race in Lemons. Weirdly, it might have been the slowest. These guys, they had overheating problems early, then it started to rain, and that helped because, water cooling. But what really sold us is that this rookie team, they took a decidedly socialist approach to racing. That means slow stops, plenty of brakes. They were not really trying to make quota on this deal.
AJ, did they have the bread line?
They had the bread line. Essentially, this was just Brezhnev's dream on track. We loved it. Best of all, they did not finish DFL, and they did not resort to cheaty Fiat parts. This thing was Yugo through and through. Fabulous.
The index of Effluency went to Shopaholics and their Chevy Lumina. This was a rookie team that really made an impression on Judge Tom and Judge Sajeev. They're from Texas, so obviously they're not bringing some kind of socialist machine like a Yugo. Just another a completely unruined 2001 Chevy Lumina, the kind of car I drove in driver's ed. That's how you know it's good. These guys had a huge crew of people, and they were helping them fight through brakes and cooling and engine and transmission and kind of literally everything that can go wrong on a car issues. But they managed to turn some decent laps, and their secret? Ask for help. Listen to the help, don't ignore the help, and wow, you can actually fix a car and keep it running. Now, if you raced in Texas over the last couple of years, you might recognize this car as the Illuminati, in which they lightly rethemed with tinfoil hats, but still, it's a Chevy Lumina. It's a terrible car, and they beat half the field in it. Well done, Index of Effluency.
And the Halloween Meets Gasoline plus $1,000 prize went to the famous Loose Nuts Racing. Now, this part of Oklahoma is well known for its Wild West law-free history and to some degree current status. So it was natural for Loose Nuts to just theme as frontier justice, and they brought their own jail, they brought their own six-shooters, they brought their own wanted posters, they brought their own Wild West outhouse, complete with authentic Wild West outhouse smell. It was disgusting. They paraded around all night like they owned the place, and they locked up lemon staffers. And if there's one thing I personally like, it's locking up lemon staffers. How come I don't get to do that? Nicely done, loose nuts. They even got local, legitimate law enforcement in on this deal, and that was a masterstroke, because you know what? Take note, Lemons racers. Play nice or end up in the hooskow. Okay, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?